Welcome to the David Spisak Show. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me. I don't know whether you're sitting in a car, sitting on a couch, sitting on a beach. It doesn't matter because you've been kind enough to give me your time. And since you've been kind enough to give me your time, I always want to do everything humanly possible to deliver massive value for the time you're investing. I feel very confident. If I was sitting on what's that called in the morning? Not CNBC, right? I would be pointing to this stock. In the stock I'm pointing to is John Fitzpatrick, because I have no doubt whatsoever that this is going to deliver big ROI. This is definitely going to cause you to walk away with 2, 3, 4 or more ideas that you could deploy in your dealership, in your business right now. And you're going to have some surprises, because one of the things there's a lot of things that's very different about John. And we'll get into a couple of those. But without any further ado, I first and foremost want to thank you, John, for taking the time to join me today.
David, thank you for having me, and that was quite the intro. So I'll do my best to live up to that. Thank you.
Yes, I wanted to apply a little bit of pressure, but I have no doubt that you're going to live up to it. So, John, you're the co-founder and CEO of Force Marketing. Let's start with this. I'm going to come back to Force. Don't worry, in a second. But I want to learn more about you. But I do want to start out with this. How long ago did Force Marketing first come into being?
Yeah. So Force Marketing started out as Force Media Group by my father, Jim Fitzpatrick, who many in the industry know.
The one and only Jim Fitzpatrick, creator of CBT and
that's
so many good things for this
CBT News,
industry.
And he's off and running with that. His idea was to create the CNBC for retail automotive and all online and all video, and he's very much doing that. And so Force Media Group was running for about a year, and they had a couple of employees and a couple of clients. And the whole concept was, with his 30-year career in automotive, which I obviously grew up in. Every time I visited Dad, I was the kid on the golf cart driving around the dealership. I never worked in a dealership, but I learned a lot about how the dealership operated and what made it a success sitting in Dad's office. And if you're a general manager at a dealership, your hours are on the door. And so I grew up understanding that. And so when I was coming out of college in 2006, he said, hey, before you go to law school, which is what I thought I wanted to do, why don't you come join me as a co-founder? Because we have a lot of ideas on how we can take this bigger, but I need a lot of help. And so I came in and with sort of more of a marketing data approach to things. I took a look at his accounts.
Fair to say a modern approach?
Sure, a modern approach, but data is everything to me, right? I want the data to dictate all of the decisions that we make. And in 2006, you got to think, for the most part, it was TV, radio, and print for dealers, and no spend on Meta or Facebook at the time. Not much spend on Google. This was before Google put together their premier partner programs and all the things that they did. But I saw very quickly that TV, radio, and print, while my dad loved it, and the average age of the car dealer was 73 years old, and they loved it too, that was not where the ship was sailing in connectivity to the customer. And so what I very quickly latched onto was this simple. If I download the dealer's database and I spend some time in an Excel spreadsheet with pivot tables, I can figure out who's coming off lease in 6 to 12 months. They're going to need a car. I can very precisely, very personally email market and direct mail market those customers. And I could showcase an attribution on that. In other words, we sent them an email. We got them to come in and take a test drive. Can we showcase some marketing attribution? And that is where Force Marketing really was birthed, because everything we still do today, 19 years later, is rooted in having those attribution metrics and viewing every advertising and marketing dollar as an investment dollar that you can produce an ROI on, not an expense dollar that you just typically, if you're running a business, look to cut expenses. And so that's really very much who we are today. Now we do it with a lot of technology. There's no more Excel, spreadsheets and pivot tables and folks working in Excel, because we have Audience IQ, which we've developed to allow us to scale and develop products and solutions that help dealers. And we're very, very proud of that. But it's very much rooted in those early days of understanding that a dealer's first-party data inside their DMS and inside their CRM is incredibly valuable to an investment conversation in marketing. And we hope to see that really take form in a very, very big industry.
Well, thank you for allowing me to open with that, just so people get some kind of a basis. I mean,
sure.
19 years, it's hard to believe for me. I mean, I remember when 19 years, it's just unbelievable that it's been nearly 20 years. Yep. It's hard to believe. But, you mentioned a lot of things in there to unpack, and we're going to touch on those. I want to focus on one particular word, though. You mentioned DNA, and you didn't do it in this context. But we all know what DNA is. You have a good idea when it comes from a scientific perspective, when you're talking about the DNA of a human being. But you think about that when you talk about the metabolism or the makeup of somebody's bodies, right? In terms of how each one of us have a certain DNA molecules in there, medically, health-wise. I want to talk about the DNA of John Fitzpatrick. I want to talk about, because you mentioned a couple things in that really popped into that just stuck with me, and I just thought, wow. One of them was, hey, the general manager's hours are what?
On the door.
What's posted on the door, right? So there's no schedule for a GM. It's if you forget, go outside and look at the door. If we open at 8, you're there at 8. If we close at 9, you're there at 9, right?
That's right.
So it's the universe is funny, and how great is it that it became imprinted on your brain thanks to your dad, your wonderful dad, and what he was doing, and that you not only understood that, but he lived it, right? It would be one thing there's a lot of stores. Every store's got the hours on the door, John, but I go in a lot of stores, and not every store does somebody understand that to their core.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
So the fact that, you were exposed to the business, but moreover, you're exposed to somebody that had a tremendous amount of respect for the business, for what he wanted to do, what he needed to do in the business, and showed you from minute one, it took work ethic. It takes grit. It takes hard work. You're not going to just be given something, right?
That's right.
Second thing is, I want to rewind for everybody. I want to rewind the tape a little bit for everybody listening who doesn't know you personally, doesn't know you intimately. I'd like you to just kind of go backwards even further and tell us, like, first and foremost, just curious, like, where are you from originally? Where were you born?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I was born in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and my parents were high school sweethearts, and then Dad jumped right into the car business, and so that didn't work out too well. They got divorced pretty early. So I largely grew up with a single mom in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Dad moved to Atlanta, and that's where I am today. So we would visit Dad in Atlanta at dealerships, right? And then ironically, he had when Mike and Mike were building up with Huizinga, the AutoNation brand, he came back down to Fort Lauderdale for a little bit, and I'd visit him in the Republic Industries building, and that gave me another.
Well on 6th in Fort Lauderdale. Spent many hours there.
That gave me another view to the auto industry, which has all been at the time, as a 10 or 12-year-old, I didn't realize what that was doing. But sitting in his office in the Republic Industries building off Las Olas down there, and watching, the boss come to work by helicopter. He's like, all right, stay at my desk. Don't leave. I got to go in this meeting real quick. That was very impactful moments for me in terms of the size of what auto could be, right? And then ironically, all these years later, we work with AutoNation. I think that's just serendipitous and really cool to be able to share that story, which I have with all of the C-suite down there in Fort Lauderdale. But I went to school at University of Florida, which is important because that's where I met my wife. So we were college sweethearts. She went into a sports broadcasting career. She's had a much cooler career than I've had on the sidelines of big college football games, working behind Tracy Wolfson as the sideline reporter for CBS football, college football at MLB Network. She had a show in New York. And so what was cool about that is, as I was building force marketing in Atlanta, I was shooting off to DC when she was with the Nationals, or New York when she was with, Major League Baseball, or she was with the Patriots for a little bit when we had a place in New England. So we had all these condos all over, really the Northeast, while she had this awesome career. And what I would do is I'd call my sales guy that had that that area and I'd say, hey, I've got, 2 tickets behind home plate because my wife's working the game at Wrigley. Give me a dealer near Chicago and I'm going to take them out. And I did this for 10 years. And that's how we, before kids, and that was a big part of the relationship side.
Thank you, Mrs. Fitzpatrick.
Of growing the business. Yeah. So that's a piece of our success is being able to be, very much in dealerships, shaking hands. I learned that at an early age, old school. You dress the right way. My dad would be very ashamed of this because I don't have a tie on right now. He sleeps in a suit, crying out loud. And so, but that is who we are. That's who I am. And that was the DNA of the organization. And you mentioned a word that's really near and dear to my heart, is grit. Dealers have an enormous amount of grit. Entrepreneurs have an enormous amount of grit. Things are not always going to go your way in business. In fact, oftentimes they're not going to go the way that you sketched it out. And so this grit concept is absolutely alive and well, so much so that I have it. I am speaking about who I am today. I have 3 beautiful children. James is 9 years old and is quite the athlete. And my daughters are in dance, Audrey and Evelyn. They're 7 and 6. And I am coaching the 9U Longhorns baseball travel team this summer.
Wow.
And my little thing right here for the 9U Longhorns, it's on everybody's wrist, are these 3 things: teamwork, attitude.
Yes, sir.
And see that other word?
That's right, grit.
Now, what's crazy about teamwork, attitude, and grit is, and it's crazy, I'm watching it all the time, whether I'm in a huddle with my 9-year-olds on a diamond or whether I'm in a boardroom here in Force Marketing, show me a team on the diamond or in the boardroom that has great teamwork, really good attitude, highs and lows, and an enormous amount of grit. And I'll show you a winning team.
100%.
And we may talk to the teams differently. I may speak to my 9-year-olds differently than I speak to our 40, 50, and 60-year-olds in a boardroom, but it's the same concepts. And so that thinking about who is John, it's trying to bring all of that together. That's what fires me up. Leadership, focusing on areas of high growth, things that you can get inspired about, things that, that can create legacy. That's very much who I am.
I love that. And yeah, I bring it up because my wife, who's a badass physician, hospital-based physician, I never lost. I mean, she's just spoke to her and we speak for like sometimes 3 minutes, 2 minutes at a time. But just to be able to get, just to get that connection.
Absolutely.
You doing okay? You good? Okay. What are we going to do later? So I don't know. I think I'm going to hug you. I'll probably hug you, kiss you, and say, I don't know. There might be more. I don't know. It's like, right?
I get
there
it.
might be spooning.
A
Who
good
knows?
partner in life.
Know.
I tell you, I was told this early on. The partner that you choose in life is the most important thing, and that is so true. Running a family, but also running a business, having that support system to go home to is incredibly important to all of our success. So
it is. They make the good days epic, amazing. Yeah. And they make those rough patches, they remind you why you do it. Why do you run through the wall? Why do you get up over and over and over again? And you'll never stop. I've got a quote: "Relentless cannot be defeated." And if as long as I've got my family, and obviously I'm a very much a not in terms of a fan, Green Bay Packers, but the great Coach Lombardi, God, faith, and family. That's what it's about. So you had mentioned something prior to us getting on, as far as starting the actual podcast, that I would love to share with people, just because I think it's remarkable. And I think it's something I think in this country, there's so many incredible things about this country. There are countless millions of amazing stories about incredible people that are the fabric of what makes America great.
So true.
And amongst those are people that have just a tremendous reverence for family, right? Reverence for where they came from, reverence for staying together, reverence for making sure that we maintain a connection between our kids, us, our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, if you're so lucky. Would you mind sharing? Now, I mentioned this. I mentioned, obviously, when you mentioned to me that your oldest name is James, sounds similar to a name of a guy that I know, Jim Fitzpatrick, right?
That's right.
So
that's exactly right.
Could you just share why that happened and why it was important to you?
Yeah, well, we've got a tradition here of, I was named after both my grandfathers, John Fitzpatrick and William Haslam. So I'm John William. And I always, growing up, was fond of that. And I had a particularly close relationship with John Fitzpatrick, who's my dad's father. And so I just loved that concept. And so when James was born, it was pretty easy to name him after both his grandfathers, James Joseph. So my father-in-law is Joseph Acro. My father's James Fitzpatrick. And so he's James Joseph. And then we carried that tradition through with our daughters, Audrey and Evelyn, who are great grandmother names. And we just, we're really proud of that. And
I love that.
They have a tie to their heritage in just their names. They'll never know them, in terms of meeting them, but we can build upon that and build upon the importance of family and faith. We both kind of grew up Catholic, but not all the sacraments. My wife grew up Catholic, very Catholic, all the sacraments, Catholic school, the whole thing. And so we're carrying that tradition on the faith side as well. Our kids are in Catholic school, and
same.
And so between those two things, it's really given us a lot of purpose. Reverence, certainly. Benevolence is something that's important to us. Sort of the list goes on and on. But as we think about how we want, our kids to develop character and meaning and purpose and value and what they can bring to the table. I'm in an organization called YPO, Young Presidents Organization.
Sure.
I have been now for about 9 years. A lot of dealers are in YPO. One of the things we talk about in YPO, for those that don't know, you're under 50 and you're running a business. That's basically the parameters. Now there's revenue and full-time employee targets in terms of getting in, but basically you're the top guy or girl and you're under 50. And now they have YPO Gold, so after 50 you can stay with the organization. But YPO is really generally that. And by and large, the YPO conversations around kids are, we've been very successful, some ultra successful, most just successful to some degree. And a lot of them did not come from success or came from, in my case, a single mom and then a dad in the car business and sort of figuring that piece out. And so we said, man, we've been blessed with so much. How do we keep our kids grounded? How do we keep them with a clear North Star? What can we do to both give them the things we didn't have, but also make sure they're understanding of how much of a blessing that is and how to jump out of bed and be a self-starter and be, committed with the same things that got us to this level. That's like sort of the big thing. How do we figure that out and not have attitudes and not be tied to our devices? And so, do we have it figured out? No, but we're aware of it and we're trying. And I think that's a big piece of who we are as well.
Well, I think when you have a rock solid foundation, and obviously everybody makes their own choice, lives their own life. I'm as long as somebody is respectful, kind, treats people well, do your thing. From my perspective, I was raised it was a very tough beginning, but the one thing I had was an incredible mom who raised us on a foundation of spirituality, on a foundation of reverence for family, even though our family didn't look like other families. Strength, getting inner strength from that family, supporting each other, and all of those things that are critically important. And today, when you get raised in a tough circumstance, John, it's not ideal. Grit comes along. Grit, whether you ask for it or not, grit enters the room. The opportunity, grit's going to say, hey, are you up for this?
That's right.
Hey, are you going to fold? Or are you going to rise up? And you have that opportunity. But our kids today, a lot of them, if you're fortunate enough to do well, you got kids getting raised in a bubble. Life's not as hard. It's very hard when it comes, I think, for some kids, mental health, bullying, devices, addictions. Sure. But when it comes to some other parts, it was not nearly as tough as it was for us. And so to be able to raise your kids and get them to understand the concept of grit, work for it, don't quit, don't give up. Keep going for what you believe in. Put in the time, 10,000 hours for mastery, all those things that we know makes a difference. It's not easy to do. The fact that you're volunteering your time, I have to laugh because I've been there. I mean, you talk about the expression herding cats. Okay, 9-year-olds. Okay, these 9-year-olds are not fully developed, right? 18-year-olds aren't fully developed. Our brains don't fully develop to 25 at 9. And by the way, the bandwidth of personalities, the bandwidth of expertise, the bandwidth of baseball intelligence, if you want to say that for a 9-year-old, it's all over the field, no pun intended. No doubt. Right?
All over. Yep, it is.
But if you could just kind of focus yourself, as it sounds like you are, in the bigger game, and the bigger game of teaching these kids how to work together, teaching these kids how to lose and come back, teaching these kids how to not give up if you struck out the last 7 times.
That's right.
There's so many tremendous life lessons, and it's got to put, as great as things are for your business, and as much as it's got to put a smile on your face when you and your team does well in business, I have to imagine that there's moments on that baseball field that exceed that, right? In terms of putting a smile on your face. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, no doubt, all the time. I mean, the grit that we're teaching them is, right, you strike out and do you cry about it or do you bounce back, right? And now, by the way, I love a kid that has enough to cry a little bit, right? Because that means they care a lot.
Yes.
I can coach that up.
Like they hate to lose.
They hate it, right? We just gotta harness that. Cry for a second if you got to cry at all. I understand, what we really mean. You're down on yourself, but then bounce back. Figure out ways you can do it. How do you approach practice differently the next day because you're really bad you're mad that you went 0 for 3 or whatever the case might be. And that's a big thing, right? And think about how often we see that in business, right? Someone that maybe just lost an account in the client success team and they get really down on themselves and how can we have done things differently? Maybe. And it's like, look, let's learn from it, right? When we lose, if we learn, we didn't really lose. We only really lose when we lose and we learned nothing from it.
That's right.
Right. And so that's a big piece of, again, sort of looking at the similarities between the boardroom and the diamond. They're alive and well all over the place.
I love it. I like to,
so much of it is mindset.
I like to split it between react and respond. Yeah. So when something happens that punches you in the face, there's nothing wrong with the reaction. And you, frankly, you have jurisdiction on your own brain, on your own feelings. You can react any way you want. And how
did you respond?
But then, how did you respond, and how long did it take you to go from the reaction to the response? That's to me where I see the difference in people. Do you agree with that, John?
I totally agree with that. And look, I mean, pivoting into auto, are we reacting to tariffs and saying that the SAR is going from 16 to 13? What are we going to do? Or do we very quickly respond and say, we're going to meet the customer where they are? We're going to make sure that we're ensuring that they know that this price that they can buy today is locked in. We can assure them that we are still here to service their vehicle. And so it's also translating all the way through to our client conversations, this react versus respond conversation. Same thing internally when we're running the business, right? Businesses are going to have their ups and downs, react versus the response. So I mean, we see that all day long. And I think that is what's exciting about running a business, is just having the ability to lead so many great professionals through, the ups and downs of business. It's exciting.
So you're 19 years in.
Yeah.
And first and foremost, thank you for allowing me to dig around a little bit and learn a little bit about what makes you you.
Glad you did.
And how you got to be here. Sure. And I thought that was really insightful. I think there's a lot that people could take away from that. I'm going to pivot over to the business side of the equation. And you started to touch on that. And there are so many parallels, so many lessons that could be taken from a baseball field, a football field, or different areas of life home into the business, right?
Totally.
One of the things that I wanted to touch on that I thought is striking, I'm always looking, John, I hate the word standard, normal, average, right? I mean, it's just like, why don't you be normal? Why in the hell would I want to be normal?
When I can be exceptional?
The glory in normal,
That's
right? There's no, there's no books. I love books. It's like there's no book on the greatest conformist ever. This is the most amazing average person ever. Who cares?
That's right.
You have to have the guts. You have to have the willingness, the confidence, the belief, sometimes unfounded belief, to go forward and to do things that are non-conventional. One of the books I happen to have here, love this guy. His name is Rohit Bhargava, and he's made a career. I don't know if he still does it. Winner of 6 international book awards. His book is called Non-Obvious. I love the non-obvious. Well, you get into a marketing agency, and if you showed me 100 marketing agencies in retail automotive, where does 90% of their focus lie, John? 90%.
90% of advertising agencies in auto?
Yeah, if you took 100 advertising agencies that I've known in my career, the vast majority of their focus is on selling cars.
Selling new cars. That's
right. And specifically new cars, right?
Yep.
But yet, when you look at the composite of a dealership and you look at the majority of the revenue, it's in cars. When you look at the majority of net, it's not.
That's right.
In new cars, right? You've got other areas of the business that make very significant or could make significant contributions. One of the things I thought is interesting is about 5 years or so ago, you purchased a company, GSM, right?
That's right.
It was a pretty well-known company at the time. And so I've got a couple questions. Number one, was that a little bit of a David and Goliath in terms of the size of force buying GSM, because they had maturity, they had size, they had dealerships across the country. I mean, that was a gutsy move, and obviously that took a lot of belief. Something that really stood out and stands out about your organization is you're anything but typical. Most ad agencies within our space, the industry, always hyper-focus on selling cars specifically. It's probably 90% of what they talk about, focus on, and recommend in terms of buys. And within that, most of that's new cars. About 5 years ago, you did something that to many would seem maybe questionable, maybe like that's out of left field, or it doesn't make sense because it's the farthest thing away from a focus on selling cars and new cars. And would you mind just touching on the fact that you made a decision about 5 years ago to acquire a very well-known, highly respected company that had hundreds, if not over 1,000 dealers across the country, and they did it specifically focusing on fixed operations.
That's right.
So would you mind just touching on that story?
Sure.
How did that happen?
Absolutely. It's a great story. Gulf States Marketing you're referencing, which was owned by the Friedkin Group, the Friedkin family out of Houston, Texas, also operated under the term GSM. And we still have that brand alive and well today. We made a decision because of the brand equity that it had since it was started back in 1988. At the time, 34-year-old company. So at the time, we had a 15-year-old company buying a 34-year-old business. You're right. It was a little different. And some have called it lucky. And if you define luck as I do, which is preparation meets timing, we were lucky. We heard that asset might be up for sale through my network. I'm a big networker. I believe in it wholeheartedly, and made a strong pitch because we were prepared to the Friedkin family. We made a strong pitch because on our product roadmap, we knew that if we wanted to be committed, truly committed to lifetime customer value for our dealer partners, that we had to have a retention lifecycle management in the after sales fixed ops side of the world that could speak to the variable ops side of the world in helping them sell new and used cars and inventory management. And so as we were building out Audience IQ, our platform, we knew we had to build or buy this piece. And we felt increasingly that it was going to have to be a purchase. And with a relatively small balance sheet, we thought we would likely have to, raise private equity to make an acquisition of that size. COVID came around, and it allowed us to jump in to deep conversations with the Friedkin family and the leaders over there at that group, and leverage at the time 15 years I had in the industry, leverage my family's name, leverage the relationships that I had, leverage the great client relationships we had made with some of the blue chip publicly traded organizations in retail automotive, and make a claim that if you sell this incredibly rich asset to me, I will make sure that it has no reputational damage to Gulf States Toyota distributors, which was the number one concern, by doing what's right and making the product better and investing in the people and the great culture that Shelley Washburn had sort of developed, this incredible culture that we were able to sort of match and see very evidently. And Mark Watts over at the Friedkin Group gave me some advice. Have you ever bought a business before? I said, no, sir. He said, okay, I think after a presentation like this, which by the way was in person in Houston in December of 2020. So think about six seats apart, got your masks on, very much COVID. But I'm big on, we got to meet face to face. And I sort of pressed my way in there. And I made a very sincere pitch that this asset would be best for the industry if it was with us and if we allowed to continue to develop the great development that they had already made. And Mark told me, well, son, if you're going to do this, I got two bits of advice for you. You better make this very, very simple, and you better be able to move very, very quickly. And we were able to do both of those things. 44 days later, again, never bought a business before. 44 days later, we closed on that acquisition and have just been absolutely rolling since. And it actually has excited us about the power of acquisitions if you do them the right way and how accretive they can be to bringing, value to the culture that you already have in place, the dealers that you already have in place. And our thesis was simple. Could we sell variable ops marketing solutions into fixed ops clients at GSM? And could we take fixed ops clients at GSM and sell that product into variable ops focused clients on the force marketing side? That was it. If you could do that, this is a home run deal. And we were able to do that. And we're still able to do that. And to your point, 5 years later now, it's still the leading indicator of a lot of our growth is our ability to go to a dealer group and say, do you believe that it's important to utilize your first party data in your DMS and your CRM in a more effective way to hopefully drive down your cost of marketing and advertising? Most will say yes. Do you also believe that it's absolutely imperative that we have a better customer shopping and buying ownership experience in auto, and that we deliver that in a hyper-local way through our retail dealer network? They'll say yes. Well, then we have an option for you that brings both variable and fixed, one conversation with the client out of Audience IQ to life. Because there's nothing more frustrating to a customer than when they make that purchase, and instead of getting a service conversation about scheduling that very important first service appointment, they say, hey, we'd love to buy your trade-in. They get an email message, so we'd love to buy your trade-in. And you're like, the trade-in that I just traded into you 3 months ago? Why are you misusing my data? Or you went into the service side and you said, you know what? Now, I just came in for an oil change. I'm going to defer that maintenance. I'm not going to do the other $1,200 of work that needs to be done. And then you go home and you think about it and you spend a couple of times and you're taking your kids to school and you go, you know what? I still need to get that done. Let me go to an independent repair shop because it's better off. I'm going to be quicker and cheaper if I go there. Well, we didn't do a good job of communicating that it's not quicker and it's not cheaper. And with factory trained technicians, it's better to bring it back home where you bought it. And then there's stats like they're 7 times more likely to purchase their second vehicle from you, Mr. Dealer, if all you did was earn their service business. And we also know that if we earn the 16-year-old's car all the way till 80, and every car and every service in between, that's $364,000 of lifetime value to a dealership. And by the way, that was a McKinsey study done 10 years ago. when the average cost of the vehicle was not $50,000 and the average repair order is not what it is today. So I would suggest it's probably closer to $500,000 in lifetime customer value up for grabs in every hyper-local marketplace all over the globe for 17,000 dealers to go get their fair share of. Or in our dealers' case, they want it their unfair share of. And so it was absolutely rooted in preparation and knowing where we wanted to go, what was needed for our dealer bodies, partners. And that's what brought us that deal. And we're very excited about it. Even to this day, 5 years later.
It's a really tremendous story. I mean, just set aside for a minute that this podcast hyper-focuses on retail automotive, and set aside for a second, that you've got this tremendous agency that's nearly 20 years old. You're going to celebrate next year your 20th year in business, and that's a heck of a milestone in and of itself. But that story, I love stories of entrepreneurs. I love stories of people that rise up, people that figure things out, people that somehow, some way, figure out how to pull off the unimaginable. What many people thought was unimaginable. Can you imagine, for anybody listening, that this is not a startup that John's company bought? This is a company that's very well established. And by the way, if you don't know who the Friedkin Group is, the Friedkin Group, I don't know if this is the case still today, but at one point, they were the largest company of their kind, IT company in the United States, period. This is a giant, huge company, incredibly mature, insanely successful for decades, that also had this part of the organization in automotive. I was fortunate enough to work with them, John, on one of my software products back in the day with Reverse Risk. And this is an extraordinary company to have. An upstart, and 15 years, successful, great reputation, but nonetheless, come on, an upstart. Very much. To pull that off is incredible. To then take that and successfully assimilate it into an existing culture, figure out how to intelligently bring it together with the existing offerings, and then go about the business of growing that in a hyper-intelligent fashion alongside your other offerings is wonderful. I wonder, as we're coming up on the top of the hour, if I could ask you a few questions.
Sure. Shoot.
For those of you for those out there that don't know, and honestly, I don't know, just if you would, what is Audience IQ and why does it matter to me as a dealer? Yeah,
so Audience IQ is our platform that we've built. Most would describe it today as a customer data platform created specifically for retail automotive, for car dealers. It's also a marketing automation platform, right? But here's what it is essentially. It's our ability to connect to a dealer's CRM and DMS, first of all, clean that data regularly, right? And use it effectively for more personalized communication with the customers that they're looking to either bring into the dealership or continue to work with on the service side of the dealership. It is not SaaS as software as a service. It's more software and a service, our approach that we go to market with, where the software Audience IQ is what all of our family of brands operate with. We have Force Marketing, We Drive Automotive, and GSM all operate off of Audience IQ. And what really that allows us to do is have multiple entry points to get to work with us. You may have a need in fixed ops, and so you might come through the GSM door, and that's how you operate with Audience IQ. You may have just a need to do hyper-personalized, very targeted email marketing and direct mail, and you may come through the We Drive Automotive door. And then you may come through one of our 13 OEM certified programs on the DigAd space, whether that's BMW or Audi or Stellantis, and 13 of those. And you say, I want my co-op and compliance all handled through my certified program and my DigAd to start with Force Marketing, and you come in that door. You're operating off Audience IQ. But what it allows us to do is once you're in Audience IQ, you now have the opportunity to buy other solutions as you. So we think about what we've built as a toolkit. Some dealers need the whole toolkit. They need the hammer, the nail, the screwdriver, the saw. Some just need the saw. Or in some of our big dealer groups, like Sonic Automotive, for an example, where we work with about a third of their organization, they may have some stores just on our Atom fixed ops product and no digital advertising. They may have some stores just on the certified digital ad program. They may have some stores just doing mail and email marketing with us, and they're utilizing that toolbox as the needs of each dealership changes. And that's worked really, really well for our dealer groups. And so that's sort of the environment that we've built and will continue to build as we refine our solutions to dealers.
So I mentioned, obviously, that you had a smaller, younger company buying a more mature company. I want to pivot a little bit. Now you have a company of your size, been around for nearly 20 years, certainly mature in many respects, certainly respected in many respects. But do you ever sit there sometimes and think, wow, this is crazy that I'm working with 1, 2, 3, multiple billion-dollar automotive enterprises? You mentioned AutoNation is one, Sonic is another, you've got others. First of all, does that ever strike you just in a quiet moment? And two, why do you feel these organizations that really everything matters, everything counts, they don't take anything to chance, they have massive accountability and responsibility to shareholders? It's a different level. Why do they choose Force Marketing?
Results. We live and breathe every day by the results of their organization. That's something that my dad taught me earlier on. Yes, I got my undergrad degree in political science. I thought I was going to law school with a minor in entrepreneurship from the University of Florida. But my grad degree is from John Fitzpatrick in automotive. And he said, never lose sight that your job is to drive results of the organization. Period. Full stop. And oftentimes he reminds me of that when I'll explain to him on CBT News this new product we came out with, and he'll pause the cameras and he'll go, John, I'm putting my GM hat on. You lost me. You got way too data oriented. I don't know about half of the crap you just rattled off. I'm putting my GM hat on. We'll get the cameras rolling again. You got to dumb this thing down. You got to speak to, and dumb down is probably the wrong word. I don't mean it that way, but you got to speak to how are you moving the dealership's business forward with this solution, right? Because it's great that you got all this data connectivity and this new partnership with Amazon. Yeah, that's all great. How are you helping me service and create more ROs? How are you helping me sell more cars? Period. That's all I care about. That's what you're held accountable to. In every single one of those organizations, whether it's AutoNation, Lithia, Penske, Sonic, Group One, and so many more. It's because when they pick up the phone to one of our lever pullers, as Rachel Richards, the former CMO of Sonic, used to call them.
I love Rachel.
Our lever pullers behind our technology, behind Audience IQ, you have the best lever pullers in the business. And it's because they understand that when that call comes, they better understand how to get to a result very, very quickly. That's going to help the dealership move forward. And if they can, they're going to find a vendor that can. And it better be driven by data and analytics and decisioning and not somebody's gut reaction or gut feeling. And so that's how this whole entire organization operates, is we are results oriented. One of our core values is bias towards action. Let's not overanalyze. Let's create action. Let's put, if a dealer's calling us and saying they're walking into a quarterly earnings report or they're walking into just a team meeting at a dealership, they want to know what their marketing team is doing differently based on the results of last month, last quarter, to improve the outcomes in the next month, in the next quarter. And that's what we're very, very good at.
So you prove yourself every day, every week, every month. You have to know my business as well as I know my business, and you have to care about my business as much as I care about my business. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely.
Okay, here's a question. What's next? What's next for you at Force Marketing?
We want to continue to build really good products, or as we call them, solutions, that help a dealer move their business forward. That's our brand promise. And so understanding the dealer's business, where they're profitable, inside of our Atom tool, we believe that it's more important if you're going to put that car up on the lift to go after the RO that's $1,200 or not $20. Right? And so, and you can do that strategically through the data, through the connectivity of how you're communicating to them. It's a race to the bottom if all we're doing is is changing price and making price the factor. Price is generally not always the factor in a market as to why you're going to earn their service or their sales business. There's all these other unique selling propositions that these dealers offer that need to be told. It's our job to do a better job of that. And so our future needs to continue to do two things. Make it a lot easier for a dealer to operate their marketing, right? The fact that they work with 15 different ad folks, right? I mean, if you just think about the third parties alone, you got a cars.com rep, you got an Auto Trader rep, you got a, Car Gurus rep, you got a True Car rep. It's crazy. Park that for a second. You oftentimes then have a website company and an SEO company, and maybe that's the same. Then you've got your dig ad, and then maybe you have an agency of record. And we want to consolidate as much of that as we can to enable them to make data-driven decisions on that marketing investment. The car dealer's day trading the consumer's attention. We need to be day trading as well in their ad dollars, right? If you have a stagnant $10,000 that always goes to Google, regardless of your inventory levels and regardless of market need, that doesn't make any sense in today's world. That should fluctuate. We should have somebody day trading that all day long, and we have a team that does that. So that's one category. And then two, we have to be improving the customer experience. We've got to focus on metrics that move customer lifetime value, which is, as we've talked about, absolutely rooted in fixed ops, and understanding that we can sell cars through the service lane, and we should be picking up trade-ins through the service lane. And that is a circle that continues on over and over if we're very, very good at it. And so being that extension of the dealer's team to operate just as if we were right there next to them in the dealership is how we will continue to grow, build products, and provide more value to this incredible industry.
John, I created a quote some years ago, and I really believe it. Tell me if you do as well. And it's critically important, we all know this, for dealers to have partners, not vendors, to have solutions, not products. But I really do believe we're at a point to where it's now optional to waste money on advertising. Do you agree?
Optional? You're making a decision? Yes.
I have a quote.
They're making a decision. That's correct.
My quote is, it's now optional to waste money on advertising.
That's correct.
In other words, if you deal with the right solutions, the right team, the right people, you're going to have a significantly higher level of accountability and performance for every dollar you. And you mentioned this. We want ad spend to be in the investment ROI column, not the expense column. And so that's why I bring it up, is because it sounds like you agree with that it's optional for dealers to waste money on advertising. You just gave an example. If you just say, I'm going to spend 10 grand every month in Google, there are some months you're wasting your money. There's just no way around. I'm sorry. There's some months that you're sending money down the tube. If you don't have an intelligent approach, if you don't have campaigns, if you don't have a cohesive effort, if you don't have integrated efforts going forward, there will be waste. Period.
There's no doubt about it.
And there's no need for it.
The more we can eliminate that waste, again, my father told, hey, there's three major expenses, right? I've got running a dealership. I've got personnel, I've got inventory, I've got marketing and advertising. That's an area that you can help a dealer absolutely drop dollars to net profit if you can be more efficient with the ad spend. Some get aggressive and say, I want to put more dollars out because I want to steal market share. That's a strategy as well. Some say, look, I just want to be incredibly efficient and drive as much profit into this store as possible. Okay, we can do that. And so there's no doubt about it. Look, I think you're tapping into another quote. I love quotes, by the way. But you make one mistake, that's a mistake. You make the same mistake twice, that's a decision.
That's right.
So and so the same thing can be held true across all of these different ad dollars that we're spending in all of these different channels. Why do we continue to pump in the same, investment dollar and expect a different outcome over and over? At some point, that's the definition of insanity, right? We need to use the data in real time to share shift, wallet shift, until we get the investment calc that makes the most sense.
I agree. I'll give you one more of my quotes before I jump off into the speed round. Can today be the last day that we're surprised by things that are 100% predictable? Can today be the last day? I tell this to dealers all the time. Can today be the last day that you're surprised by something that's 100% predictable?
Yeah.
Okay? It happens at every dealer every day. It makes me nuts, right?
Yeah.
So, all right. So
point.
let's jump into the speed round. Okay. First car you ever owned?
God, first car I ever owned. Technically, I owned personally. That wasn't like a parent's car that you're driving.
First car you owned?
A Ford Mustang.
Not bad for out of the chute. Way to go, Dad or Mom.
Yeah.
Whoever signed up for that.
Black on black. 5-speed transmission, which I think, and I will, for at least for my kids, everybody should learn on a manual, because you're very, very focused on the road when you're trying to figure out which gear to go to next. And you're literally
and you
driving.
Can't hold your phone.
You're literally driving the car. You can't drive.
You can't hold your
phone
with a stick shift in your hand.
Stick shift, baby.
Hey, could you name one time that you could recall in your professional career that you got punched in the face in business that you've been thankful for it ever since?
I can think of a lot, but let me think of one. I think probably the one that happened more times than I'd like to admit is being punched in the face is thinking you had all the answers just off data, and there's another side to it. There's actually a personal side to every transaction. And being too confident on just the data, not understanding that you're not in the dealership every day, will give you a punch that you probably deserved.
Yep.
And that's that balance of working with the GM and his team, in a dance of understanding the data and the investment dollar, but also what's happening at the dealership level that makes that a special relationship, or a partnership, as we call it. And when I've been quote unquote punched in the face, it's being overly reliant on only the analytics that we see, and not layering any of the feelings of what's happening from a personal standpoint at the dealership level with the consumer.
I like that answer. Thank you. It is my belief that one of the things we've also done too often and for too long is we make decisions to hire people in the business, especially specifically in dealerships, with a higher priority based on their experience rather than who they are and what they bring to the table, their work ethic, their grit, their attitude, their outlook, their ability to work in a team, their ability to think strategically, critically. If you had to make a decision with two people, relatively similar people, one has the edge in that they understood how to use, a certain DMS or a certain inventory management or whatever it might be, CRM, and one who was a rock star, who had those leadership capabilities, who had that high emotional quotient, which one are you going with?
In the latter, all day long. What I'm looking for mostly in somebody that's coming into our team is someone that has a high degree that's first and foremost a self-starter. You got to leap out of bed.
That's EQ.
On your own. Mm-hmm. You have got to be a self-starter in life. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And by the way, this organization of self-starters will spit out the ones that aren't organically and quickly. And you have to be accountable to what the business needs from you. Accountability is so important. And so being a self-starter, high degree of accountability, very, very important for folks that join our team. And by the way, when you have those things, you're going to fly. You're going to fly. You're going to mend really, really well with the team that's already here. Because look, and Nick Saban said this at the CBT conference back in 2017, high performers, right, hate mediocre players, and mediocre players hate high performers.
That's right.
And that's alive and well here.
A players don't want to work for a B manager or a C manager. They don't.
Nope. It's frustrating. It's demoralized. It's there's so many things that it is, and it's not uplifting. It's not inspiring. And so you've got to create a culture that has some key elements to it, and those are two of them for us.
I love it. Last question, or not technically a question. Finish the sentence for me. I love the car business because.
There's a lot. The pause is because there's so many things I love about the car business. So to put it into one word or one phrase.
Oh, it doesn't have to be one word, but just what do you love difficult. About this business?
I love the resiliency of the car business.
Great.
I love the can-do attitude. Whether we're talking about cash for clunkers or semiconductor shortages or tariffs, by and large, it's, let's go sell some cars and service some vehicles, right? Like, we get through it.
What else
I love that about this industry. I love the can-do attitude, roll up your sleeves, get it done. I love the pace that our partners require us to run at. I've had multiple people, some of which you know, that were major players in the vendor auto space that have sold and since left the auto space and gone into other spaces. And they've just said, man, when you cut your teeth in auto, you can go into any industry. Because you learn so much about grit and determination and fast pace and make decisions, and you'll get called out if you're wrong. And then you go into these other industries that perceptually are so far advanced because, look, I can go online and buy this right away, but are so far behind in the grit and the, attention to detail and the, rubber meets road mentality. And those are things I love about the auto industry.
I love it. Well, we could not wrap up on a better note. John Fitzpatrick, I want to thank you for sharing both the personal, the professional. I want to thank you for sharing your insights and your perspectives. I said at the top of the hour, I felt highly confident that if you were a stock, you were going to deliver a big ROI. I'm 100% right. You certainly did for me. Well,
I thank you for saying that.
I'm right. I'm sorry. I'm right. I'm right. This, I got a few things down here and a lot more in my brain. I know that anybody listening is going to say the same. For those of you that did take the time to listen, sincerely, thank you. I really appreciate it. And I hope that you feel the same way. I'm confident you do, but I certainly hope you feel like you got an awful lot out of it. And by the way, you know somebody who would benefit from what John has shared. And this could be things he shared, whether it's technology, things about his company, or his insights, his philosophies, his perspectives, or what he looks for in a great associate or anything else. Do me a favor, share this out to somebody. It'll definitely have the power to make their day, their week, their month, and maybe even 2025 better at a different level than it otherwise would have been. If you want to take the time to leave a review, it can be good, bad, or ugly. It's all good to me. I learn. Like John said, I don't succeed or fail. I succeed or learn. So I love all of them. You can go to davidspisak.com and learn more about John. You can get show notes there, and you could also learn, most importantly, how you could connect with John, either LinkedIn, through email, or some other fashion. And most importantly, John, I want to thank you for taking the time that you've given to me and to us today. Look forward to seeing you hopefully sometime in the near future at an industry event. It's just a matter of time.
That's right. David, thank you for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been an honor. I appreciate it. And I love your approach to this podcast. I didn't quite expect your approach, but I love how you break down both the personal and the professional side, because we are human beings and we're operating with both all the time. So thank you for that.
Well, I think it's important. I mean, people want to know what somebody else is about. And certainly I don't know about everybody, but I buy from people. I don't buy from companies. And it means a lot to know who they are, where they came from, and what they stand for. And you hit a home run on all fronts. Best to you, your dear wife. Sounds like she's an absolute rock star as well.
Yes,
it's funny
no
how
doubt.
life works, but what a
Thank
blessing. And best to James. And it's Audrey and Evelyn, right?
Audrey and Evelyn. Yep. James, Audrey, and Evelyn. Thank you.
Best of the Fitzpatrick family. All the best for a great 2025 for Team Force Marketing. See you soon.
Thank you.
And for everybody out there, thank you. See you next time on the David Spisak Show. Thanks.